now it's time to listen our chief guest of today's function, who is a great academician, teacher, mentor and guide, and an administrator. If I read his biodata, it will be an seminar or a webinar itself. But in brief, I'd like to explain 2 or 3 things related to Professor K.K. Agrawal Sahab. Presently, Professor K.K. Agrawal Sahab is Honorable Chairman, National Board of Accreditation, Ministry of Human Resource and Development, Government of India, and Mentor and Chairman, Center for Education Growth and Research, again MHRD. He had been chairman in many technical institutions, IITs, NITs, and other engineering institutions. Professor Agrawal has been the world's youngest professor. I was looking in Google. He is the world's youngest professor. The age we start our career, he become professor in the age of 25.5 years. So we'll be having a chance to listen the great academician in that way. He is a technician basically from education. Professor Agrawal got many achievements. He is got Man of the Year. He go from USA, International Man of the Year in 1992, Man of the Decade, Man of the Century, and Man of the Millennium from USA. Professor Agrawal has been chairman in many academic bodies. I'm not naming each. Professor Agrawal has been in advisory council in IT, Government of Delhi. He is chairman and member of UPSC and RP state boards. Professor Agrawal got Lifetime Achievement Medal from India International Friendship Society USA, Shiksha Shiromani Award, Gold Medal, Delhi Ratan Buddhijeevi Suman Award, Sir Thomas Ward Memorial Award, SN Ghosh Award, LC Varman Award, Rajkumar Vashne Award, Guest of Editor Award, many more in the list. Professor Agrawal has been the founder and Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indraprasth University for 10 years. He has also been the Vice Chancellor in GJ University Hisar, and he had worked in many reputed positions. He is a true administrator as well as a teacher and academician. With all due respect, I welcome you, sir, and invite you to deliver your keynote address. Professor K.K. Agrawal, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishan Goyal, for a very nice introduction. Whatever time you have taken is your time. My 20 minutes start now.
Yes, sir.
Professor Trivedi, Vice Chancellor of the Jayanarayan Vyas University, Dr. C.B. Sharma, Dr. CPS Cyber Security Services Limited, then the keynote speakers, Professor Justin Paul, Professor Sunil Gupta, Professor Akhil Mishra, then President of the seminar, Professor J.R. Bora, Professor Krishan Goyal, Dr. Kshitij Maharshi, other eminent speakers, delegates, and my dear colleagues. By the time Professor Krishan Goyal read my CV to some extent, you probably know I am neither a professor of management nor of cybersecurity. But nonetheless, I am here at this webinar for a few reasons. First is the topic is so important for the day. I mean, these topics were important for quite some time, but suddenly after the COVID, the importance of these subjects has become manifold within these 3 months, and we have to debate and discuss on this. Number one. Number two, I think it is Dr. Sunil Gupta who invited me to this webinar on behalf of the management committee, and he is whatever you call me to be. I couldn't say no to him. And then he made me speak to Dr. C.B. Sharma, retired IPS, and I was so impressed by his commitment to the subject, even at this age and this career level that I thought, or whatever little I can contribute to his efforts, I must do that. So Dr. Sharma, thank you very much for doing so much. He also told me that he has of late studied philosophy because it is connected with the cyber security in some sense. I agree. And let me formally tell Dr. Sharma that I am a professor of computer science, and entire computer science is giving mathematical language to philosophy. See, we had logic in philosophy, and to give mathematics to logic gave birth to computer science. In philosophy, we used to say, if this is true, then this is true. If this is true, this is false, then this is false. All what we did in computer science is gave mathematical Boolean algebra language to this language of philosophy, and the entire computer science was born. So your philosophy is very relevant to computer science and cybersecurity. I like to reconfirm that. Having said that, friends, I have listened to three eminent keynote speakers, and that makes my job a little easier this evening. Professor Justin Powell, with his very scholarly address, talked about some models, and his 7Ps model even I had read, although not a management person, but the model is so simple but so valuable. The lesson which I would like to convey is simplicity probably gives us the best concepts. Many of our researchers are very happy in making complicated equations, complex models, and they neither help them nor the society ultimately. So we have to do modeling in a simple manner. And I still remember I also did modeling in my way of cost versus quality modeling. And things were so simple at times, which we have to do. And then Professor Paul also said, blending IT with management. Well, friends, I have always been saying information technology is a tool. The mistake which we did in this country and maybe the world over, we tried to treat information technology as a subject by itself, giving BTech information technology and so on and so forth. Well, I always believed information technology is not a standalone subject. It is a tool which must be learned by others to practice in their own domains to get full application out of it. And we are paying heavily for that mistake. The rate at which information technology was sought to be introduced in BTech curriculums by AICT, now the rate of closure of information technology is larger than that. Because we did not think it as a tool, we started thinking it as a subject. I remember having delivered a convocation address maybe 20 years ago when I said, well, information technology can at best be said as a layer of butter on a piece of bread, which could be mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering. And in the worst of scenarios, you can live on the bread alone, but you cannot live on the butter alone. We try to make a mistake as if we can live on information technology alone, forget about mechanical engineering, forget about civil engineering, forget about anything else. If you are good in information technology, you have won over the world because salaries were high and so on and so forth. So that misconception came, which we are now correcting. So I was very happy when Justin Paul introduced it as information technology blended with management. Friends, it always takes time for the new concepts to introduce. I certainly remember in 1999, when I started the first batch of courses in Indraprastha University, which I founded, I introduced a course, MBA E-Commerce, in 1999. And as it always happens many times, probably it was little earlier in the day, and after a couple of years, we had to change it. and again reintroduce it after several years, because the time of the idea had not come still probably at that time. What I'm trying to say is to foresee what is coming has been now lacking in our academic systems to some extent. And in that context, I'm extremely happy of the disruption caused by COVID. I mean, COVID is a very bad thing, nobody can appreciate it. But in academic community, in academic world, in our universities, to introduce drastic changes was always very difficult. You could bring in cosmetic changes, make 4 lines change in the syllabus, make one course from 4 credits to 3 credits, make this, make that, but make drastic changes has been almost impossible, except for some very few bold attempts. Now, when COVID-19 has already disrupted your academics, it has now changed. You can't. And you cannot go back to where you were, because that's not possible. Let us assume COVID is completely eliminated within a month. You still cannot go back to the universities in the same format as it was, because social distancing will still have to be done for a few months more. And if that be so, can you have so many classrooms 3 times or more? No university can have it. So therefore, this previous model of education will have to be changed. It's a necessity of time. And also, the present model of online education completely is again not a model which can be lived with forever for all courses, for entire management, entire engineering, entire medicine cannot be done online. And therefore, this also is a model which we cannot live with. Therefore, my dear colleagues who are mostly from teaching community, friends, you do not have the option to continue with what you are doing today. You do not have the option to go back to where you were. And therefore, you have to think of a third alternative, a blended alternative, a very different alternative, how assessment could be done, how teaching could be done, which subject could be done in which manner, and so on and so forth. You might have to design a completely different pedagogy to teach financial derivatives rather than organizational behavior in the subject of management. The 2 subjects need not be taught by the same mechanism. Entire teaching learning mechanism and examinations will have to be disrupted. Somehow, even in the management education, we believe 3 hours examination at the end of the course is a dire necessity. I mean, all of us learn to live with this. There is no other method to examine the students except to give them 3 hours theory paper at the end of the semester. And all my little research, I could not find any theory behind the magic figure of 3 hours. Why it could not be 2 hours? Why it could not be 4 hours? There are subjects which can be examined by a 6-hour examination. There are subjects which are good enough to be examined in 2 hours. And let me tell you, I just read a paper, very interesting paper. This simple fact that every university will conduct a 3-hour theory examination and prepare answer sheets for that. Pure students will write 28 pages, and then the examiner, if he is very serious, will spend 10 to 15 minutes on that, and otherwise even 5 minutes will do. So that kind of examination we have lived with. And we talk about cyber security, we do not talk about examination security. We do not talk how far the justice has been done to the examination. And this notion of 3-hour theory paper, we are cutting 6.5 crore trees every year just to make answer books. Now imagine we change our thinking from 3 hours to 2 hours, we will save 2 crore trees every year, because of the size of the answer book could be reduced that way. And will we suffer anything in the process? Nobody has worked. Probably it's a thought now, because disruption has already taken place. So let us open ourselves to new things to see what we can do. Professor Justin Paul also talked about robots. Robots will become more popular. Yes, they are becoming more popular. But let us not go into a mad race between man and machine. And in the process, the damage we are creating to the human being. Somebody very rightly said, the entire education should be to convert human beings to being human. I mean, I think in the whole process, being human element is completely being eliminated. And we are trying to become machines. We even forget robots need not sleep. We must sleep. So if we try to copy robots and try to work 24 hours a day, how much damage we will do to us, to our families, to our organizations, to our entire system, to all our students, is a thought which we must give ourselves. So let's not run into a race with machines. Let us continue to treat machines as our slaves and make the best use of those machines to serve us, to help us. They are our servants, they are not our masters. Unless we, as a computer science professor, I have always been saying that if we lose control over the machines, then there will be probably very serious repercussions which we should caution ourselves against. The Professor Sunil Gupta talked about a lot on intricacies of e-business and all that. And I remember when we introduced automation in India, there were so many strikes. Many of you younger faculty may not even remember that. There were so many strikes. How dare you introduce computers in banks? And it was a tough job for administrators to convince the employees that computers are not bad for you. And see the scenario today. Bank says, if you come to the bank, I'll charge you. If you do net banking from home, it will be free transaction. It has become completely other way around. There was a time when they used to say, if you want to go for a digital transaction, it will cost more. Now they say, don't come to the bank and stay at home, work from home, do all your transactions at home. It will be much easier, much better, much cheaper. So, and now the discriminating feature between various banks is human interaction, because automation is almost same for all banks. And now it's other way around. Banks are trying, how can we have some interaction with the client? How can we convince the client that we care for you, we value you? How to do that? So the sort of this competition between man and machine. Somebody from very senior from the banking industry told me, I'm maybe little off with the figures because they are quite old figures. He said a physical transaction to the bank costs about 50 rupees per transaction. An ATM transaction costs about 25 rupees per transaction, but a digital transaction costs only about 5 to 10 rupees per transaction. Now just look at these figures. If digital transactions were not there, all our physical transactions would also be at our cost ultimately. And we are saving all that cost. Some of you would recall, to send a draft along with your application form was a nightmare by itself. First of all, when will you get it? Then when will it reach? Then whether they will be able to encash it at the right time, and so on and so forth. Today you do it in a flick of a second. So that advantage is not always in the psychology of digitization, but the real hardcore advantage is saving money. You don't now pay anything for any transaction in the real time. You transfer lakhs of rupees in a minute without paying anything. Earlier you used to go to bank thrice, pay quite a bit, so on and so forth. Finally, Professor Mishra talked about authenticity, reliability, and encryption, etc. And he finally said that he still believes less on online, but relies more on cash on delivery. Yes, that's the mindset of our generation, but probably the future generation will not have a scope for rethinking. They will not probably even have the option of cash on delivery. They will have to accept the digital transactions. There is also a myth, according to me, that cyber crime or the financial crime by digital transaction is very, very high. Well, I don't know, Professor Dr. Sharma might differ with me or agree with me or analyze it later. I do not think so. What used to happen earlier was that you have been cheated was not even publicized. Because whom do you tell that you have been cheated? Now you put on the social media, the bank has played a fraud. And number one. Number two, the volume of transactions has become billion times than it used to be. Volume of each transaction has become very high. The number of transactions has become very high. And I intuitively feel if you calculate the percentage of figures involved in the crime earlier and percentage of figures involved in the crime now, it may not be a very bad scenario even now after digital transactions. Yes, it is, and we must try to correct it. Friends, our cybersecurity policy still continues to be what we designed in 2001. Now, in this kind of change of scenario in the world, a policy which has been designed in 2013 obviously has to change and change drastically. The country must work on that direction. When I talk about rate of change, uh, in 1950, the knowledge used to double every 6 years. In 1980, it started doubling every 4 years. In 2010, it was doubling every 2 years. And 2020, people speculate it might double every 6 months. Now, if the knowledge has to double at that rate, and our thinking does not start the same ratio, then we are somewhere to be changed. We have to remold ourselves for faster changes and go ahead and do. So I believe this uh, conference will debate on these issues. Cyber security issues need attention. They have to be made simple. And according to me, the reason for cyber security is simple. We are information rich now. And only rich man needs security. Poor man never locks his house. Only the rich man put 7 locks in the house because you are rich. Similarly, now we are information rich. Therefore, cyber security has become an issue for us. And it will remain so. So therefore, cyber security will have to be attempted seriously, and e-business is a given thing now. I don't think we can even discuss the pros and cons of e-business. We can only discuss how to improve the methodologies and pedagogies in e-business. And friends, because it's a largely attended conference by very senior people, you will probably have to give a relook to the entire globalization philosophy. I mean, COVID pandemic has told us whether globalization is the way to go or rural sustainability is the way to go, or somewhere in between. We will have to see if the flights can be stopped overnight, if the trains can be stopped overnight, can we go for globalization and can we remain there? And if the labor problem, what we saw in COVID, has to remain that way, is this the method of survival? Is this the right method of survival? Can we think of an in-between method? I was asked to give a talk on sustainability in a conference, and they wanted me to talk in Hindi. I looked in the dictionary to find the appropriate word for sustainability and I could not. Because I think in our scheme of thought, we never thought sustainability is an issue. Sustainability was so much built into our culture that we really never thought it's an issue and we have to go about doing something about it. Now, I think we will have to debate all these issues and make sure patenting, to which we gave so much overemphasis, is it the real right thing? Because I still remember I was a retainer consultant to TCS for 25 years. And once I was giving a talk and delivering them an algorithm, a young girl in maybe early 20s or late 30s gets up and she says, "Sir, we are a commercial company. You are giving us all these algorithms and formula free of cost." I was stunned as a professor, because as professors at that time we had never thought of selling knowledge. At that time we had never thought of monetizing knowledge. And she herself corrects, but sir, you professors are supposed to. Uh, so patenting has done many good things to us, but has put barricades in the transmission of knowledge. I was very happy when our Pune Institute, which is trying to invent, probably happily on the path for vaccine for COVID-19, says they will not patent it. They intentionally gave a statement, we will not patent it. Once we are successful, let everybody manufacture it and sell it. Will that be a better service to the society, or will patenting be a better service to the society? Always is a question mark, which again, debates like this will have to do. Finally, friends, these are complex topics. We'll have to debate a lot, but I can only tell you many complex problems in life have very simple solutions. Do not think a complex problem needs a complex solution. Of time to go into this, but I can give umpteen examples where very complex issues have been solved very simply. If you go through literature, you yourself will find all that. My own research work is primarily that. So, uh, so, so many brains put together, problems are complex. Let us not assume the solutions will be complex, and try to find good solutions to this. And finally, many of you are management teachers. Please give a total reorientation to management education. Management education can be at least 60% outside the classroom, on case study based, on reports based, on project based, on survey based, rather than theory paper based. I mean, and I find it other way around. While engineering departments will have 5 subjects per semester, management departments will insist to have 8 papers per semester. So I think this mindset should change in management education, and this could be an opportunity which may trigger this change. And finally, friends, because you are organizing this seminar in the honor of Professor Bora, so I will also convey my best wishes to him for his post-retirement well-being and happiness, and keep on guiding the community. Professors never retire, so we hope his knowledge will continue to be available to you. With these words, I thank the organizers once again to give me an opportunity to be a part of this galaxy of academicians. And thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, Professor Agrawal, sir. You have really elaborated the subject, as well as you have given the direction for education also. You really, we all feel obliged and really feel bulky as far as our knowledge bank is concerned. You are really a knowledge ocean. Whatever we are feeling, we found the same, more than that. And we'll keep in touch with you, sir. We'll be getting your guidance for further advancement and enhancement of level of education. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Now, I invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Chief Patron of this webinar, Professor Dr. P.C. Trivedi Saab. He is Honorable Vice Chancellor of Jai Narayan Vyas University, as well as Maharaja Ganga Singh University, Bikaner. Professor P.C. Trivedi Saab has been former Vice Chancellor in Deen Dayal University, Gorakhpur, and Ram Manohar Lohia Awadh University, Faizabad. He has been head, dean and director in many institutions. Professor Trivedi is a true academician. He got published 350 research papers in various journals in India and abroad, and edited and written 170 books, which is world record in his subject. Professor Trivedi has guided 44 PhDs and 21 major research projects and many more minor research projects. Professor Trivedi is an elected president of Mendelian Association of India and served as president of Indian Botanical Society for the year 13-14. Professor Trivedi has been President International Society for Conservation of Natural Resources. He has outstanding contribution in plant science and he was awarded a large number of awards and honors to recognize his contribution. To name a few, because there are so many awards, to name a few, Birbal Sahani Medal Award 2015 by Indian Botanical Society, Dr. B.P. Pal Memorial Gold Medal, given by Prime Minister, IPS Recognition Award 2017 by Indian Cytopathology Society, Scientist of the Year Award 2001, MJ Narsingham Award 2004, and many more fellowships and awards. To honor his contribution, Indian Botanical Society instituted a medal in his name, Dr. P.C. Trivedi Medal for Editorial Excellence from 2019. This award was initiated in his name to recognize and honor his contribution in the field of academics, which will be given each year for quality books authored, edited, published by plant scientists. You have been working in all sides. Sir, you have made a golden triangle of excellence. Excellence in administration, excellence in research, and excellence in teaching. You have been a very good, excellent teacher. You have been a good researcher. You wrote many books and you have guided 44 PhDs and an excellent administrator. Parallelly, you are administrating nowadays two universities, Jai Narayan Vyas University, Jodhpur, and the Ganga Singh University, Bikaner. We feel proud pleasure to have you as our mentor and guide in this university and chief patron of this webinar. With all due respect, I invite you, sir, to give a chief patron address for this webinar. Professor P.C. Trivedi, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Goyal. I am happy that Dr. CBS Cyber Security Services Jaipur, in academic collaboration with Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Jai Narayan Vyas University, Jodhpur, and Indian Accounting Association, Jodhpur branch, is organizing a webinar on the subject e-business and cyber security. On behalf of the Jai Narayan Vyas University and my own behalf, I extend very respectful and cordial welcome to our chief guest, Professor K.K. Agrawal Sahab, Honorable Chairman, National Board of Accreditation, HRD, New Delhi, and all the learned keynote speakers, Professor Justin Paul, Professor Sunil Gupta, Professor Akhil Mishra, for accepting our invitation to join this webinar. I am thankful to you all. Just now we have listened a thought-provoking lecture by Professor K.K. Agrawal. He has rightly said that after COVID-19, we have to think about our entire education system for future generations. Really, sir, this is an era of IT, and particularly we are going with the coming up of artificial intelligence world over, which is taking a major breakthrough in our daily life. Sir, cyber security is the most essential requirement of our present time. After COVID-19 outbreak, online business or e-business has taken over the traditional way of business administration. It is conducted with the use of web, internet, intranet, extranet, or some combination of networking. Hence, the confidential and valuable data is open on the internet, which require a strong cyber security system. Friends, the COVID-19 dimensions have intensified in virtual world, and now cyber attackers are trying new tactics to get to users, especially work from home executives and common masses, along with an effort to cripple country's IT infrastructure. Several ministries in the central government as well as the state governments are witnessing increased traffic. Thereby, essential need is for precautionary measures to counter cyber attacks. Friend, there has been an increase in the number of cyber attacks on personal computer networks and routers since professionals belonging to private sector in India were asked to work from home in the wake of the COVID-19 outbreak in the country, said by Computer Emergency Response Team of India. The nation's cybersecurity agency in June 3rd week, the CERT, in response to computer security incident and reports emergency measures for handling these incidents in India. Cyber security is essential for IT infrastructure, including Digital India. Each e-governance project should have a security layer. Before building any e-governance project, the security aspect should have in place in the design of stage. The cyber security cell of the government has to play an important role to monitor the design stage. Moreover, the concept of security has undergone a massive change with the evolution of technology and digital transformation. Friend, thus we need more precautions for implementing various measures by the government to secure the integrity of critical national infrastructure. Digital India has encouraged citizens to use IT initiatives implemented by central and state governments across the country. Since citizens believe in digital transformation, it is equally important for the government to protect their trust by protecting IT infrastructure from cyber attacks. It is an important responsibility of every organization to ensure safety of data and important information. In view of threats, security auditing needs to be conducted, and it will help to patch the loopholes of the application to ensure the safety of their data. We should always adopt best security measures to combat cyber attack, and thus the need of the hour of every organization is to get the vulnerability assessed and plug the loopholes for the safety of cyber world. I am thinking that how these things, the cyber crime people are doing, they are all doing because of their greed. People are doing such crime against the norms of humanity. I am thinking many times that they have killed their conscious, Zamir. I am telling to those people that Zamir zinda rakh, Kabir zinda rakh, Sultan bhi ban jaye to man ka fakir zinda rakh, लालच डिगा न पाए तुझे, आंखों में वो नीर जिंदा रख, और हौसलों की तरकश में कोशिशों के तीर जिंदा रख. मुझे लगता है अभी rightly Agrawal साहब has rightly pointed out that we have to make good human being for the society. Man is not now a man. संसार सुरभित और पावन हो जाएगा आदमी जब आदमी हो जाएगा. They are doing crimes for different types of crime. So this is the right time that more researchers are required world over, particularly by scientific community. We need more advanced research for cyber security in near future. And this is the responsibility of the young generation, that they should do more scientific research in the field of cyber security, which is a new branch in our country particularly, very few institutions are running such type of courses and providing high quality research. This is a time to do quality research on cyber security. Friends, I am telling one couplet for Professor K.K. Agrawal, because his thought-provoking lecture has really created an insight in all of us. सर, मैं आपके लिए कहना चाहता हूं कि कुछ लोग दिल में ऐसा असर कर जाते हैं, टूटे हुए शीशे में भी पूरे नजर आते हैं और मिलते हैं हमें कुछ पल के लिए, जिंदगी भर के लिए दिल में असर कर जाते हैं. You make imprints in our hearts. Sir, thank you for such a thought-provoking lecture. And I'm telling to all these persons who are associated with the seminar, I am hopefully look forward for stimulating academic session during this webinar, which would enlighten our young generation to orient their future researches in the service of humanity. Thanks to Dr. C.B. Sharma ji, Dr. Jasraj Bohra ji, and whole team for organizing such a great event by bringing big experts on one platform. I am also want to best wishes I want to give to my one of the senior most faculty member, Professor Jasraj Bohra. He is retiring on 30th June. So my best wishes to Professor Jasraj Bohra for his active, healthy academic life after June 2020. Our doors in the universities are always open for people like you. We need your help as an academician for more years in the university. I am thankful to all the persons, Dr. Goel, Dr. Mishra, and all other associate people who are engaging their duties in one or other form in this international webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your inspiration, guiding, and a knowledgeable lecture. We'll certainly do a lot under your able leadership. Will not leave any stone unturned to make our university best in the world. We'll do our best, sir. And this outcome is the result of even your letter, which you have released 5 days before, and we get it activated this event in this week only, and we got a lot of response. About 400 delegates joined us for this particular conference. Tomorrow we'll be having a better session. We have 3 speakers from different countries and one from India, that is he is from IIT. So we'll be having the same type of panel tomorrow also. Great 4 speakers, and our chief guest of tomorrow's session will be the professor from St. John's University, Canada. So I hope all of you will join tomorrow also. Now I request, sir,
sir, I will just to give my sincere thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, and I will find myself fortunate to have worked with you for a small period of time, but I am really lucky. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Bohra Sahab. I wish you a bright future after 30th of June. We'll miss you here. Really, we did a lot under your leadership, academic. You are an academician, great academician, really, and you did a wonderful job during last 3 years. Before now, Honorable Professor M.L. Kumar Sahab, Professor Tulsiyan ji, and Professor N.K. Pandya Sahab has also, I'm looking them on the screen. I welcome you, sir. And now we are coming to close to the session, and we have question answer sessions also. But before question answer session, I request Dr. C.B. Sharma Sahab, patron of this webinar, who is guiding force behind this webinar. It would not be at this juncture or at this level if Honorable C.B. Sharma Sahab is not guiding us, not forcing us to do hard work. He is a great mentor, guide, inspirer, and motivator and this is the result of his inspiration only. He did many achievement in his life. He'll be delivering a lecture, keynote speech tomorrow. So his detailed CV will be discussed yesterday. Today he is being an organizer. I request you to, sir, give a formal vote of thanks to our dignitaries and participants. Respected Dr. C.B. Sharma.
I, Dr. C.B. Sharma, being the chairman and patron of this webinar, on behalf of DR CBS Cybersecurity, Jainarayan Vyas University, Jodhpur, and Jodhpur chapter of Indian Accounting Association, first of all, pay obeisance to Lord Ganesha, Ma Saraswati, and pay homage to my parents, late Pandit Badri Prasad Ji Maharshi and Srimati Suva Devi Ji Maharshi, for blessing us with the first day success of such a valuable international webinar. As Professor Goyal told us, more than 400 representatives from every corner of the world participated in the first day of this webinar. This is a huge success in itself. Good evening to Honorable Chief Guest, Professor K.K. Agrawal Sir, Honorable Chief Patron, Professor Dr. P.C. Trivedi Sir, distinguished keynote speakers, Professor Justin Paul, Professor Sunil Gupta Sir, Professor Akhil Mishra, President of this webinar, Professor Dasrat Ji Bohra, Vice Presidents, Professor Raman Kumar Dave, Professor S.P. Singh, Professor Umed Raj Tated, Webinar Advisor, Professor Krishna Avatar Goyal, and his team, Director Dr. Kshitij Maharshi, Secretary Mrs. Swati Vasisht, Joint Director Technical Mudit Chaturvedi, Joint Secretary Administration Mr. Sachin Sharma, and all respectable participants, Honorable Justice V.S. Dave Sir, Honorable Sri M.L. Kumawat Sir, retired DGP BSF and Vice Chancellor Jodhpur Police University, Dr. Manoj Bhatt, retired DGP Rajasthan, Sri Arun Kumar Ji, retired Chief Secretary Rajasthan, and so many other dignitaries connected online in this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. P.C. Trivedi, for his unconditional support and guidance for the success of this webinar. On behalf of the entire organizing team, I would like to thank our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor K.K. Agrawal Sir, for taking his precious time out and consenting to be the Chief Guest. Sir, indeed your words have inspired all the participants and the members of the organizing team. I thank our respected webinar president, Professor Dasrat Ji Bohra, who graced us with his presence and support. Thank you, sir, for saying warm words of welcome. I thank all the distinguished and renowned speakers, Professor Justin Paul, Professor Sunil Gupta, and Professor Akhil Mishra, from the bottom of my heart. Sir, your deliberations on the need of cybersecurity in modern day e-business world, the way in which each of you explained this subject was extraordinary. I feel honored and lucky to have the opportunity to give a vote of thanks on this special day to a very sincere faculty member and advisor to the webinar, Professor Krishna Avatar Goyal, and his team members, Dr. Kshitij Maharshi, Mrs. Swati Vasisht, Mr. Mudit Chaturvedi, who have been the backbone of this webinar. Also, I want to express my heartiest gratitude to all the teachers present online as well as in absentia today. I would also like to thank the students and all the non-teaching staff of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies for the complete preparation of this webinar session. You have made the best arrangements for this webinar in such a short time. Thank you wholeheartedly. Once again, I extend a very happy vote of thanks to the chief guest, chief patron, and all the three distinguished speakers who spared time from their busy schedule to grace the occasion. I mention my deepest sense of appreciation and place on record My hearty thanks to all the volunteers and technical team members because of them, we made this webinar possible. Our technical arrangement team always is the best in class, sir. Now at the end, the most special thanks I personally owe to my brothers, sisters, my spouse, Mrs. Manju Sharma, all my family members, and all my colleagues for their constant rejuvenating support. Thank you all, sir. Now I request Professor Krishna Avatar Goyal to proceed for the question answer.
Now we have with us Professor C.B. Sharma Sahab. He is an expert in the field of cyber security. Professor C.B. Sharma is senior cyber auditor. He is world-renowned cyber security expert, and his glorified experience also includes that of an outstanding and decorated former Indian Police Service officer. He is proud recipient of very prestigious President Police Medal. His deliberations today will certainly around cyber security for corporate, legal mandate, and international standard. The main theme of our webinar is e-business and cyber security. And I know the cyber security is the threat for not only the expert but everyone, for a common man also. And many of you must be having many queries. I'm sure your queries will settle down during the lecture, but if you have any queries, each and every query you can settle down with our today's expert, Honorable Dr. C.B. Sharma Sahab. So with all respect, due respect, I invite Dr. C.B. Sharma Sahab to deliver his speech. Dr. C.B. Sharma Sahab.
Thank you. Do you hear me, well, sir?
Yes, audible.
Audible?
Very much audible.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, audible.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitmastu Ma Vidyasavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. First of all, I pray to Almighty God, may the knowledge shared be brilliant and there be no animosity in both of us, that's the participants online, the webinar, and me, the speaker. Pay obeisance to Lord Ganesh Ji to complete the webinar successfully, Ma Saraswati to give knowledge and thoughts and synchronize with the need of the time, and pay homage to my parents to bless us. Now, Mr. Goyal has introduced me, but a little in a different way. First, I'm not a professor. I'm a retired police officer. Before joining the police services, I did my MSc in microelectronics, and during the active police service, I did my LLB because it was needed there in the administration of justice. Then PhD in student police relationship. That's why they call me as professor, but I'm not a professor. Anyway, let us come to the main theme, and that is the cyber security. What is this cyber security? Let us come to straightway to that thing. So, then the cyber security, and the today's topic is cyber security for corporates in legal mandate and international standards. So we will discuss first one by one what is cyber security, body corporate, what are the legal mandates, and what are the cyber security international standards. As we know, the general perception about cyber is something related to computers. But when we discuss cyber security, legal mandate and international standardization to achieve that cyber security, the security of the cyber system, if we should also know the ingredients of cyber security. So how we define cyber security? It is the characteristic of culture of computers, information technology, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence and machine learning, encryption, dark web, and cryptocurrency. All these are included in the definition of cybersecurity. The special characteristics of computers, as we all know, that it performs three functions: arithmetic, logic, and memory functions, and it processes the data at a very high speed. So when we provide security to a computer, why we want to know? When we want to provide security to the computer system, we adopt such controls and reviewed procedures that no one can communicate with or instruct the arithmetic, logic, and memory functions of a computer resource. That is the basic requirement for the cyber security. If we want to secure the computer system, we have to stop all that. We have to protect the system, like the information technology, because it is a characteristic of culture of computers and information technology. So what is this information technology? It's the study, design, development, implementation, communication, storage, retrieval, security, and security management of the computer-based information. So it is the computer-based information. Basically, it is the security management of computer-based information. So there are two things. One is the information. So what are the ingredients of information? Normally, we have the perception of information, but in the context of IT, the information includes data, message, text, image, sound, voice, codes, computer programs. All that is included in the definition of information. Then in security management, as we know, the information is qualified by the computer-based information. So what is that computer-based information? And then we always talk about the data. Whenever we talk about the cyber security, we want to protect data. Our data has been infringed. Our data has been stolen. All that. So what is data and what is this information? We talk about the information management system and security of information, as well as we talk about the data. So there is a correlation between information and data. Data is defined as the representation of information. Means data is definitely an information, but it is qualified as if it is prepared in a formalized manner, processed in a computer system or computer network, and maybe in any form stored in the memory of the computer, the internal memory of the computer, then that information is called data. So in the IT world, we call it data. Now, what is cyber security? You know, cyber is the culture of computer information technology. But what is this cyber security? It is the representation of information, the protection, the information which is represented in the computer. So it's basically the protection of information, the equipments, the devices, computers, computer resources, communication device, and information stored there. So basically, it's the protection of information and the protection of all the devices which contain the information or which is the information processed in those devices or the computers. We protect them. From what? From the unauthorized access, its use. Once it is unauthorized access, it may be used, misused, disclosure, disruption, modification, destruction, all that. How do we do it? We can't do it through the physical controls because it is tangible and it's intangible. It's not the tangible. So we can't provide the physical controls. So we have to control it, protect it through the technology, processes, and practices to ensure preservation of confidence. Why do we want the preservation, the security of the information? To ensure preservation and of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. When we talk about the security of data in an organization, the data is available in the computer resources, such as first is the endpoint. We are talking about the information which is there in the computer system. So the endpoint includes desktop, laptop, or the communication device, smartphone, to which we generate the information. Then next is the network. Network includes internet, intranet, LAN, WAN, Wi-Fi, hotspot. So nowadays the e-business is all on the internet, LAN, WAN, Wi-Fi, hotspot. So we are more concerned about the protection of networking also. Then third is the network devices. These are the firewalls, switches, routers, etc. Then processors and servers. Then storage media, maybe server, maybe hard disk, maybe in the data center or in the cloud. And the other things we have to protect is the communication, the emails and websites, or the applications, the web applications, the mobile applications, the database or software. So in the process, we have to protect the data in the above computer resources available in the infrastructure of the corporate. Now, we know a corporate, what is a corporate? It is formed into an association and endowed by law with the rights and liabilities of the individual. But we have a different definition, slightly modified definition, when we talk about the legal mandate. In the Information Technology Act, in section 43A, this is defined as the body corporate, means any company or include a firm, sole proprietorship, or other association of individuals engaged in a commercial or professional activity. So what type of individual associations, maybe the company, maybe the firm, those who are engaged in the commercial as well as professional activities, they are termed as the body. After COVID-19, all body corporates, industries run their business through e-business or e-commerce, in which all the transactions are carried out by means of electronic data interchange. That is to say, we use the web, internet, intranet, extranet, or the combination of these nets to conduct business. Most of the organizations are running their offices on the policy of work from home only. Since the e-business or work from home, e-learning, e-banking, trading, etc. depend on the internet and other computer resources, all the related information or data are available on network or in the endpoint or in the processor or in the storage media. Since the electronic data exchange had no geographic or physical boundaries and is virtual in nature, it is global phenomena, hence uniformity of law was needed. Legal mandate. Now, what is the legal mandate? Means the law. So, looking to the global nature of cyber, the first of time United Nations Commission on International Trade Law adopted one model law in 1985. So, it starts from 1985. Again, it was amended in 2006. The model law, which was adopted by Commission on International Trade Law, was adopted by the UN General Assembly and they passed the resolution 30th of March 1997. And they advised all the member states. The resolution recommended that all member states, when they enact or revise their law on e-communication, should give favorable consideration to the said model law in view of the need for uniformity. So the uniformity is very much required and it is a global thing. There is no physical boundaries. To give effect to this resolution and to facilitate electronic filing of the document, so that is the first time the international mandate was given for the cyber security. And when they recommended to all the member states, so in India to give effect to the resolution and to facilitate filing the documents and to promote the efficient delivery of government services by means of reliable electronic records. Listen, it's through the reliable electronic records, the Parliament passed an act in 2000, and that is the IT Act 2000, Information Technology 2000, which is the start of Indian legal mandate for cyber security. So the international legal mandate for cyber security starts with the resolution in the UN General Assembly And the Indian legal mandate starts with the IT Act 2000. The thrust of the whole system is to make the information which is generated or produced, received, processed, transmitted, or procured, stored in a computer resource system, it should be authentic and reliable. So it should maintain its confidentiality. How can it be authentic and reliable? It should maintain its confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In IT Act, Information Technology Act 2000, Section 43A was incorporated very late in 2008 to protect the data of person taken, processed or stored in the computer resource which the body corporate owns, controls or operates. And it was expected from the body corporate, that was the legal expectation or the legal mandate, that the body corporate shall take the reasonable security practices and procedure. If the person is caused wrongful loss because of lack of reasonable security practice and procedure, he will be liable to compensation. Though punishment is not awarded under the Indian law at present or data laws, it is only the compensation under Section 43A. Under the international legal mandate to protect the data, the first of all European Union (EU) enforces General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) on May 25, 2018, which is applicable to all data controllers or processors established in EU. Secondly, those who are processes or monitors the personal data of individuals who are in EU, European Union, or the data controller or processor established outside EU where law of any one of the EU countries apply. In all the three conditions, this GDPR is applicable. Under GDPR also, the penalty for non-compliance of the provisions of data protection. They have said that data protection of an individual is a fundamental right. It is his fundamental right. So for data protection, the non-compliance of data protection provisions of GDPR, the penalty is up to the tune of 20 million euro or up to 4% of the total worldwide annual turnover, whichever is higher. That is very important. So means the minimum penalty is 20 million euro. And if the 4% of the total worldwide turnover, annual turnover goes higher than this 20 million euro, then that is applicable. But under this GDPR also, there is no punishment for punishment, imprisonment, no punishment. Then in India also, because under Section 43A, there was no strict punishment or the quantified penalty was not there. So the Personal Data Protection Bill, data protection is the fundamental right. So this is nowadays the fundamental. The present legal mandate in Section 43 IT Act, no, it is not compatible with the present IT security scenario, because everyone is worried about the protection of his own data. So looking to the scenario, it is not compatible. Then the Government of India prepared Personal Data Protection Bill 2009, and in the Personal Data Protection Bill, in which personal data, sensitive personal data, they are defined, and there is the proviso of penalties, compensation, and punishments also. Now, the penalties imposed there are to the tune of 5 crores or 2% of total annual turnover, whichever is higher, for non-compliance. There is also provision of punishment for knowingly, intentionally, or recklessly. The new term is recklessly. In all other legal mandates, there are two things, knowingly or intentionally. But there are some legal acts, especially when this is the OS Act, Official Secret Act, where the negligence, there is a punishment for negligence also. In Data Prevention Protection Act also, the provision has made for the reckless. So offering recklessly, obtaining, transferring, disclosing, selling or offering to sell data, the punishment is up to 3 years for the personal data leakage and 5 years for the sensitive personal data. So the new punishment section has been added in the bill. So it is in the Lok Sabha and it has been forwarded to the team of MPs. So they will scrutinize it and then put up in the Lok Sabha and it will pass very soon. Then international standardization for the security data. We have already discussed that cyberspace has no geographical or physical boundaries. The security of the cyberspace of the data should be, so the security should be on the international standards. Thus the cyber security for securing the data in the cyberspace, the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, and the International Electrotechnical Commission, shortly ISO and IEC, they both specialized global standardization they formed, and the ISO, which is an independent non-government international organization. I think we all know it was established in 1947. Initially there were 67 technical committees and 164 national standard bodies. And the International Standard Organization, there were about 23,244 standards for various disciplines. They deal with the various disciplines. The standard for information technology security, this starts with ISO 27001. So all those who are dealing with the cyber security, they might have had this ISO 27001. So these are the standards, and there are about 49 ISO standards for the cyberspace. This 27001 is basically to protect the data in all the systems we discussed, right from the endpoint to the processor and all that. Now, how it started, the Joint Technical Committee prepared this international standard ISO IEC 27001 just to provide requirements. What are the requirements for establishing, for implementing, for maintaining and improving an information security management system? So that is the international standard. This ISO has prepared ISMS, Information Security Management System, just they have institutionalized it. The need and objective of organization, its security requirements, size and structure of the organization. The ISMS is different for the different organizations. It all depends what are the objectives of the organization, what are the security requirements, what is the size and structure of the organization, what is in IT infrastructure incorporated in the establishment, and that is to implement ISMS of the business. So for every organization, there is different type of ISMS looking to the need of the organization. So when we talk about ISMS and ISO 27001, in the Indian context, as per IT Act Section 43A, we require reasonable security practice and procedure. And what is the reasonable security practice and procedure, and what is the data we talk about? To protect what data and what type of security practice and procedure. So they have made a rule that is information technology, reasonable security practices and procedure, and sensitive personal data or information rules 2011. So in 2011, they incorporate the rules. And in the rules, they have defined what is the sensitive personal data. Rule 3 says the sensitive personal data are of 7 types, right from the password to the physical and your medical history, your sex orientation. There are 7 types of data under Rule 3. And Rule 8 of the Rules 2011 also the so the sensitive personal data or information defined in Rule 3, password, the financial information such as bank account, credit card, debit card or other payment instrument details, physical, physiological, mental health condition, sexual orientation, medical record and history, biometric information, and any details relating to the above. So these are 7 types of the sensitive personal data. And now how should they be protected? What is the reasonable security practice and procedure? That is in Rule 8. And Rule 8.1 says these information security programs, they should have the information security programs and information security policy. So what are these information security policies? Under the ISMS, the ISO has prepared the ISMS, and in ISMS 27001, in 5.11 says that every corporate shall have the documented information security policy as needed by the organization, the security of the organization. So this 8.1 says they should have the information security programs and information security policy that contain managerial, technical, operational, and physical security measures. And then section 8.2 also says that the international standards, ISO IEC 27001 is one such standard. The other standards are COBIT, one is the COBIT, other is the ITIL, and fourth one is the cyber security framework. So Rule 8, reasonable security protection procedure and sensitive personal data or information, defines the requirement of reasonable security practices, implemented international standards, all that. Now this ISMS, which is under the ISO IEC 27001, it has 140 IT security controls. For the security, we have the controls. And under the ISO 27001, there are 114 IT security controls, and each and every corporate is required for the reasonable security procedure to adopt this ISO or any of these 4 COBIT, ITIL, cyber security framework, and they have the security controls. The security controls are of 2 types, since it's the intangible thing. So we have the physical controls as well as the logical controls. Logical controls means that of the software. Your software are also protected, and all the computer resources, they are protected. So logical as well as physical controls, and there are about 114 IT security controls, 18 control objectives. The objectives are 18. For the cyber security of an organization, this ISO 27001 ISMS requires 11 information security policies as per the ISO. And this under Rule 4 of the Information Technology Reasonable Security Restrictions Rules, cyber security audit of the infrastructure, which constitutes gap analysis of the existing security controls and any of the international standards. It's vulnerability assessment. First is the gap analysis. Second is the vulnerability assessment of all the computer resources. Then penetration testing, exploitation of the vulnerabilities found in the computer resources. Then the mapping of network, the risk assessment, identifying the non-conformities and their compliance is to be conducted every year or as and when the system is upgraded. Because when the system is upgraded, its logical security is changed. So when the system is upgraded, we have discussed till now the cyber security, international legal mandate, and international standardization for information security management. There may be a number of questions. One thing, yesterday, Professor Agrawal, his lecture was really very thought-provoking. In the last, he mentioned one thing, that the quantum of cyber incidents or the cyber crime is not that much. I slightly differ. It is not that much if the security standards or the security procedure adopted. It is exactly like the COVID-19, the virus. The virus wants the warrior. But in the cyber, it doesn't want in the cyber space, the virus doesn't want the warrior. It can travel with an immense speed throughout the world. Throughout the world. The coronavirus wants a courier, and that to a human being. And no carrier is available, then after some time it dies its own death. So we have to take only 3-4 precautions for the coronavirus: social distancing or physical distancing, wash your hands, sanitization, and all that. But in the cyber field, you have to take the physical as well as the logical safeguards and protection. Otherwise, it's very dangerous. And if you take the precautions, it definitely helps. It pays dues both ways. Coronavirus is either harmful or zero. But cyber is so useful, as Professor Saini was telling just now. But the condition is you have to take the proper precautions, proper protection, and you must know the vulnerabilities of system which you are using, and you must plug the vulnerabilities well in time. So I think there may be a lot of questions, but we will take up in the question and answer session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. C.V. Sharma, sir, for enlightening us through your deep knowledge of the subject. Karen, I'm glad to see all the participants. I don't have access to see